Hey, my name is Eric Pretender, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to improve. Actually, I'm going to show you 5 ways to improve your dog's stay command. So make sure you watch this. All right, so this video, I want to show you how to improve your dog's stay command. Very important thing for your dog to learn. So the first tip that I'm going to give you, this is really, really important. Okay, the thing about teaching a dog to do a command is that you need your dog to learn to do that command for as long as you say so. All right, so let me give you an example. So when people come to my school, the first question I usually ask them is, does your dog know how to do the sit command? And 90% of the people say, oh yeah, my dog knows how to do the sit command. My dog does a great sit command. And I go, okay, show me. And their dog does a sit, and then I say, okay, stand up and walk away. And as soon as the owner starts to walk away, the dog just jumps up and moves. And so my point is that that dog doesn't know the sit command. That dog knows the sit position. And if you really want your dog to understand the command, they have to learn how to do it the way that you want them to do it for as long as you want them to do it. That's the key thing about teaching a dog to do a command. Any dog can do a sit, any dog can do a down, but not all dogs can do a sit or a down or a stand or go to place for as long as the owner wants them to. So the first tip is that when you're teaching a dog to do a command, you have to teach the dog what we trainers like to call duration. So for me, I use the word good to teach the dog, continue doing what you're doing. Maintain that behavior. So when I first start teaching a dog to sit, I tell him sit, and I'll tell him good, and I deliver a reward to him. Good. And I deliver the reward. I bring the reward to the dog because what I'm doing is I'm rewarding the dog for staying, for holding the command. And your dog needs to learn a duration word, a word that's going to communicate, continue doing whatever behavior you're doing. So the way I do that is I say good and I deliver the reward. Very important that your dog learns how to hold the command for as long as you say so. Okay, so now second tip, extremely important tip. So your dog needs to learn duration. They need to learn how to hold the command. Second thing they need to learn is release. They need to know when are they done doing the command. So you need to not only teach a duration word, good, you also have to teach a release word. Yes, I use the word yes. Some people use the word free, some people use the word break, some people say okay. I don't care what word you use, but you need to be very clear, and it has to be the same word. You want to be very clear on that release word. So for me, when I say sit, good, I deliver the reward. When I say yes, I have the dog come get the reward. I want the dog to physically get out of whatever position they were in when I release them. So if I tell my dog down, I'll say good, good, yes. And then they come get the reward, okay? But that release is so important. You have to use a release when you give your dog a command. Because if you don't say a release word, if you don't use a release word, then when does your dog decide to get up? Right? They decide to get up, not you. And it's very important that you make the decision on when the dog is released from the command. So you have to have that release word. You must have a release word. You have to use it. If I tell my dog to sit for just a second to put the leash on, sit, put, yes, off we go, all right? But that release word has to be very clear. It has to be used constantly every time you give the dog a command. Otherwise, your dog's just gonna learn to do a sit position and not a sit command. I want your dog to learn how to do a sit command. All right, so next tip. So the first tip was dog has to learn duration, how to hold the command. Then your dog has to learn release. When are they done doing the command, right? That's why I say good, keep doing it. Yes, you're all done, okay? Third tip that I always give for the stay command is don't say the word stay. I don't ever use the word stay when I'm training the dog to do a command. So with my dogs, you will never hear me say stay, stay, stay. I don't use the word. Because if my dog understands duration, and if my dog understands release, if I tell my dog to down, when is the dog allowed to move? The dog's not allowed to move until I release. Yes. So if the dog's not allowed to move until I release, why do I have to say stay, right? You can drop the word stay. You don't have to say the word stay. And in fact, I recommend that you don't say the word stay because the word stay or the thought of stay should be built into the command. You see, when you say sit or down or place or stand, that should mean continue doing that behavior until you hear me say yes and you're released. Does that make sense? I hope it does because it's a really important concept to understand and to use, because if you're saying sit, stay, down, stay, it's being redundant, where you should be very clear with the dog. Down, don't move, until you hear me say yes. now the dog can move, okay? So I don't even say the word stay. You can, but it's better if it's just built into the command, all right? So that's tip number 3. On to the next one. This tip is interesting because what I always do is I always like to teach my dogs how to go to plays. You'll see a lot of dog trainers teach plays. And what plays is the dog learns to go over and get on a bed, and they don't come off the bed until you give them permission. And we use elevated dog beds, and you teach the dog to go over, tell them place, they go over, they get on the bed, you have them lay down or sit. And once they're on the bed, you can see the dog really starts to understand and learn the concept of duration, because once they go over and get on that bed and they step off the bed and you apply a little bit of pressure to get them back on the bed, you'll see the dog start to figure out, oh, okay, I got it. I'm supposed to stay on this bed and not move. So I think place is very helpful for a dog learning duration. Because once they start to learn to go on the bed and they start to learn duration, you can get longer and longer periods of time. Because you have to understand, duration is the hardest part of teaching a dog to do a command. Any dog can learn the sit position or the down position, but not every dog can hold the command for 5, 10, 15 minutes until you release them from the command. And so place helps the dog understand duration. Because again, it's confusing. You tell your dog to sit and you start to walk away, your dog just naturally is going to get up and go with you. Where are you going? Dogs tend to follow us everywhere we go. You go to the bathroom, they follow you in the bathroom. You walk outside, they follow you. You come inside, right? Dogs tend to follow us everywhere. And so now we're asking the dog, hey, I want you to park your butt right there and just don't budge until I give you permission to. So it's a hard thing for a dog to learn. And again, we want to be clear with our communication to our dogs. So with the place command, I find that this is an easy way to start teaching the dog duration. Because in a very short period of time, you can work up to 3, 4, 5 minutes of the dog doing duration on place instead of fighting and struggling with the dog, trying to get him to not move while you're teaching the traditional stay command and using the leash and all that type of thing. So I like to use the bed place to help the dog understand the concept of maintaining the behavior, of staying there. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. When you're teaching the dog to do a stay command, right? First thing is that we always want to do duration. We want to teach the dog duration. You should have a word, a way of communicating to your dog, continue doing that behavior. You're doing great. And that's why I use the word good. And I bring it to the dog, good. Good. You want to reward the dog for duration, for actually maintaining the behavior. Then, second thing is you need to have a very clear release word. Yes, or break, or free. Whatever word you want to use, doesn't matter to me. But you need to have a very clear release word. And when you give that dog the release word, the dog should physically get out of whatever position they were in. Sit, or down, or stand, and they should just know that they're not required to hold that position any longer. Okay? So you need a very clear duration, very clear release. You need to understand that you really don't need to tell your dog to stay, right? I don't say stay because when I tell the dog to sit, the dog's not allowed to move until I say the release word, yes. So why do I need to say stay? Then we use the place to help the dog learn. Duration, place is really good for that. But then you have to understand is that when you've gone through all of these steps and you've practiced duration, release, going on place, right? You practice all of this, there's gonna come a point where your dog is gonna go, I don't feel like staying here. I'm out of here. And so when your dog does that, when your dog decides, I'm not gonna stay here, you need to apply negative consequence. There has to be some type of unpleasant negative consequence to let the dog know, oh, I'm sorry, but when I give you that command, don't have permission to move until you hear my release word. And if this is done correctly, you don't have to constantly nag the dog or give the dog correction after correction after correction, usually 1 to 2 times. And again, if you spent the time teaching the command properly and then the dog decides to move before you give the release, you give them the correction as they start to move, and that's going to clean everything up. Your dog is going to learn to maintain that behavior for as long as you say so. Now this becomes very, very useful. Right? If you are someplace with your dog and you put your dog into a down or sit and they can maintain that behavior until you release them, now you have a useful command. And this is the whole thing about obedience, right? The whole thing about training your dog is to have functional, useful obedience. Who cares if a dog can sit, put their butt on the ground for 4 or 5 seconds and then they get up and walk away? Who cares if a dog can go from a sit to a down to a sit and then they get up and walk away? What's important is that your dog does the command for as long as you say so. Somebody pops open the front door, your dog starts heading for the door, and you put your dog into a down, and they do the down, and they maintain the down, and they don't move from the down until the door is closed and the people are in, and then you release the dog from the command. Again, that's useful. It's useful. Often, when my wife and I, we go to the supermarket during the winter, not during the summer, my dog is in the back of our truck, I'll call her out of the truck, and right there in the parking lot, I'll put her into a down as we loaded up the truck with groceries or whatever we were shopping for, and she maintains that behavior until I release and put her back in the truck. Again, it's useful, right? That's what you want your dog to do. And if your dog can perform these commands and do the commands for as long as you say so, if they clearly understand duration, they clearly understand release, if they know there's a consequence for moving before you give them permission, man, that's useful. That's good. That's what you want your dog to do. Because if your dog has solid, good obedience, your dog's gonna have a much, much better quality of life because you can bring them places, you can do things, they're under your control. And that's what you need. That's what obedience training is all about, to give your dog a good life. So I hope these 5 tips help you. If you have questions, comments, anything you want to see us do it below in the comments section. I'll try to answer everything I can. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that as our videos come out, you get notified, because I know you don't want to miss these videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.